Francisco Goya was born into poverty in a small Spanish village in the mid-18th century. Not much is known of Goya's early life, but we do know that his career took hold in the 1870s when he found favor as a painter for the Spanish royal court. Goya would remain employed under hated rulers like Joseph Bonaparte and King Fernando VII, though he would go on to deny any affiliations with them until around 1820. At some point between 1792 and 1793, an unknown illness left Goya permanently deaf in a time when sign language did not exist and literacy was a privilege reserved almost exclusively for the rich. This traumatic disability led Goya into a much darker stage of his life, and his style and approach to painting reflected that. It took him many years to learn to cope with this disability, and it was during those years that he created Los Caprichos, a series of 80 etchings and aquatints which condemned and criticized different aspects of Spanish society. Goya turned the inventive power of the artist back onto the audience by using his position to lampoon and satirize various institutions, practices, and superstitions. 852, entitled Look at What a Tailor Can Do, depicts a tree dressed up as a friar in a critique of the clergy. The message being, just because one wears the vestiges of a holy man doesn't mean that one is a holy man, or even a good man. In this series, he also uses asses and donkeys to poke fun at education in Might the People Know More. In You Who Cannot, he mocks the nobility by portraying them as an ass, riding on the back of the working poor. And in What Will He Die From, he ridicules doctors who practice medicine without mastering it. Goya used his caprichos to stretch the limits of poetic license. One of Goya's most famous pieces is the 3rd of May, 1808, which depicts the massacre of Spanish freedom fighters by French invaders and was made alongside a sister piece titled the 2nd of May, 1808. In these pieces, Goya utilized visible brushstrokes to convey the terror and the fear in these scenes. He draws attention to this man in his 3rd of May painting, and makes him into a sort of Christ figure, with light seemingly emanating from him, and the positioning of his arms, outstretched upwards, is strikingly similar to the posing in images of Christ on the cross. Just as Christ died for his cause, for his people, against his will, so will this man. He is about to become a martyr for Spanish freedom. Although Goya denied his affiliations with the corrupt monarchy under and after the rule of Joseph Bonaparte, these pieces were made for the region of Spain, likely to be displayed on a triumphal arch that decorated the streets of Madrid for the return of King Fernando VII after his 6-year absence. Mere months after the king's return to Madrid from France, he abolished the constitution that the revolutionaries had established and had all of the people involved in making the constitution assassinated. The disappointment of the Spanish people at hearing that all of their revolutionary work had been wiped away by the same king they welcomed back in less than 3 months is a major theme in Goya's Disasters of War, a series of 82 images he created between 1810 and 1820. Goya made the disasters of war as a form of visual protest, although they were not printed until after his death, against the horrors of the Peninsular War, in which the Spaniards took massive casualties trying to flush Napoleon and his forces out of Spain, as well as against the lasting after effects of the war, namely poverty, famine, and political disappointment. Plate 78, titled He Defends Himself Well, illustrates a lone horse being attacked by a pack of vicious wolves while some pampered, collared dogs stand by lounging in the corner. The horse is likely meant to represent the constitution the revolutionaries had created, with the monarchy being depicted as the wolves, doing all they can to destroy it, while the dogs, likely the nobility who had previously supported the revolutionaries, stand by without protest, fearful of losing their positions of power, even if their complacency meant erasing the progress the Spanish had worked so hard to achieve in the absence of King Fernando VII. Plate 64, titled Cartloads for the Cemetery, is the last print in the section devoted to the horrors of famine, and shows lifeless bodies being heaved and piled up into the back of a cart. Plate 15, titled And There Is Nothing to Be Done, shows a man who has been executed by French forces, and seems as though it could likely be the scene in the 3rd of May, or one similar to it, captured just a few moments later. At the end of his life, Goya entered a depressive state, haunted by the fear of insanity, which, ironically, slowly drove him mad. In this period, he created his black paintings, a set of 14 dark and horrific pieces that he painted on the walls of his home. Goya had faced many hardships in his life, from his deafness to the horrible effects of the war, to his struggles with mental and physical illnesses, and these black paintings are all of those feelings and hardships abstracted into the last images he ever created.